everyone, welcome to Stitch with Me. Today we're going to be stitching on a new Mini Moo. This little guy's name is Bramble, and he is from our Mini Moo Seasons. We have the whole Mini Moo collection that are part of the Mini Moo Meadows quilt. And they have some hints at seasons, but not not a ton of information about seasons. And so not a ton of leaning towards, like, none of it looks Halloween. There's a pumpkin in one of them, there's a heart in one of them, there's some spring, there's a little bit of red, white, and blue, but they are just a little bit hints because they're designed to all be on the same quilt. But there is a new season or a new collection coming. It'll just have a few in it. And this is one of those. It's the first one, and it's called Bramble. Okay, I have cut out all of the pieces. I've ironed the freezer paper on, and I've cut out the pieces. There's a couple of things I did. I actually went a little bit wider on this hat band because I didn't want it to be too narrow. It's actually too wide now if you look, which is perfect. It's a little bit, see how it's a little bit over the edges? That's okay. I can trim that up after I place it down. So all of the pieces are flipped left to right because they still have their freezer paper on, and the freezer paper side is the top side. So we are going to put Bramble together and applique him down. It's not going to be interesting stitches today because it's going to be the same stitch the entire time. But I'm kind of hoping that it'll be interesting for you to see how that goes together. So let me lift this up and let's get that straight up and down so that you can see it. And then I'm going to take my placement guide and I'm going to place it so that I get about the same amount of purple to near the edges, because I'm going to end up trimming the outside edge of this. I'm going to turn it into a pillow. I'm super excited. I've got some what's it called? Black and white bandana fabric that's perfect, I think, for the Mini Moo and for the Halloween. And I'm going to get that. I'm going to use that for my outside of my pillow, for the sashing around the edge of the pillow. So I just want to center this in the middle. Now I used the extra large one, the extra large Haunted Hollow background. And the reason I did is because I wasn't sure how big my pillow was going to finish. But this Mini Moo is the same size as the other ones. He's just shy of, like, this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and it's about a half an inch from the edges. So he's about 10 inches tall, and 10 inches tall is about how tall all of them are. Okay, so our first piece we would put down would be the body, but underneath the body we need the tombstone and the ghost. So the tombstone and the ghost are going to be the first two parts that go down. The other thing that we have to watch when we're putting down the body is the hooves, but the hooves go in front. And you can find that in your instructions. So I'm going to put the ghost down. Now see, I don't know how well you can see the lines on here. There we go. I don't know if you can see those little lines. They're light gray, but that tells me where I'm putting it so that I make sure I get it in the right place. And the tombstone will go over here. See, that one's a little bit darker so you can see those lines. And I just keep moving it in place and then up and down until I get it right where I want it. Nope, a little more out. All right, that will work. And then we can just pin this guy up here so that he stays out of the way till we're ready for the next one. And I don't have to leave him pinned down. I could just put him back on, and I can find placement by matching these spots now that they're on. It doesn't matter, but since there's only 2 spots on, I think I'm going to go ahead and leave him pinned down because I don't think he'll be in the way. I need enough pins to keep it from sliding around as I applique it in place. And in just a minute, I'll show you what I mean by that, because there is a soft surface underneath this when I'm pinning it, I don't want to pin it down to my table. Sometimes when you're stitching, what can happen, and this is a good place to show it. If you're kind of folding it and moving it like this, and it pulls further away than it should be if you don't have pins up close. Like if I don't have a pin till down here, I've got this one that's kind of watching it, but what will happen is that I will end up with it pinned closer, and this will kind of buckle in the middle. So it's important to get enough pins in it and enough pins near the edges that when you're stitching it, that's not a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more on my white one right here, and then we'll go ahead and start appliquing that in place. I usually like to have things pinned together and ready to applique. Appliquing is a good one for me to do on the road, so to speak. I don't have to be home to applique. On the other hand, when they're more complicated, like this one, this is one of the, I guess, most complicated applique types of things where it's got to have all of the layers like this. I am more inclined to, I don't want to take the whole thing and be putting these parts on while I'm on the road. That's a lot more complicated. And so I might start it and then get like the body and the head and the face pinned down, and then take it with me and work on it. All right, so yeah, this is a good one to get started on. Now we're going to zoom down. Okay, whip stitch. I'm not going to start at the corner just because it's a little bit obnoxious to start at a corner, so I'll start in the middle of the side. I'm coming in a shy 1/8 of an inch, not an 1/8 of an inch, maybe closer to a 1/16, and I'm going forward about a 1/16 of an inch in between. I used to think that my stitches were tiny and close together, and then I've actually been to a handful of Sue Spargo events, but one of them I was looking at some of her applique on it, and I went, oh, holy cow, my stitches are huge. So I shrunk them down a little bit. They're still not as small as hers, and you don't have to worry because this wool has been felted. You don't have to worry about it fraying near the edges. There are some exceptions to that. Wool that is a plaid very often has a looser texture to it. And that looser texture shows up in it being more likely to fray. If it's washed, it's still not as likely to fray, but I will use a little bit bigger stitches on a piece that is a texture, whether that's stripes or herringbone or anything that didn't start out as a solid wool color. And as I go past areas, I'll take those pins out. So yeah, this appliquing is one where you still have to look at it. You just don't have to think as much, because you don't have to remember the stitch or the parts of the stitch or anything like that. You're just going to town. So I like to do this while I like to listen to books while I stitch anyway, but this is one that I can do while I watch movies. In particular, I like to rewatch movies, so because if I've already seen it once, then I don't even have to look up. I can just listen. Or TV series that you've binge watched before. Appliquing is a good activity for those type of redo things. I think that when I was choosing the colors for this guy, I auditioned several of the browns and tans because I wanted him to show up and contrast well on the purple. And so he's got kind of his body is darker in the cinnamon range. His body and his head are kind of my dark cinnamon. I picked different names for it, but yeah. And then his face is the color that my cinnamon is that I buy. And then he has even lighter bangs, and then there's a tiny couple locks of really light. And remember, we'll add locks to his hair. I'll probably do a stitch with me about that because my Mini Moo Meadows quilt has been on the road for year and a half, long time. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember exactly when it was finished and when it started out on the road, but it's been on the road, and in the process of that, it just gets very well worn. Not so much around the edges like a typical quilt would, but more like it was folded or flattened or had other quilts laying on top of it, those type of things. And so the locks on it are kind of messy. I imagine it as what it would look like if you had curly hair that wasn't combed or washed for a while, but you slept on it. So we will talk about, I'll do another stitch with me where I talk about how to take care of those curls so that you can get it back to looking like what you'd like. Now, most of the time that won't even be a problem because you won't be repeatedly stacking 10 quilts on it and folding it up. And I mean, you can fold it up nicely and not have it be a problem, but I think especially as it travels, it gets a lot of abrasion of those quilt layers laying next to each other and going like this. That's kind of what the hair on it looks like. So, but I have some product recommendations for what you can do to fix that. So we will do that. And if you are watching this and thinking, but my locks don't look right, you'll want to watch that one or watch for that one. I'll try to make sure that I post on social media when that one goes live so that if people have questions, they can get that information. Okay, we are almost around to the beginning of our ghost. Now, you might ask why the ghost has the square over here instead of more little petally, wavy sheet parts, and that's because that's where it goes behind the cow. And I don't feel like we need any more extra stitches than we've already got in this quilt, and so if I have a chance to make something flat, I do. And if it's not going to show, sometimes I switch from the whip stitch to a running stitch just to hold it down. The whip stitch holds it down and doesn't show, or at least we hope it doesn't show as much. But I use the running stitch on edges where I know it's not going to show. Like the bottom edge of a block where I know the edge is going to get sewn into a seam. That's a great place for a running stitch to hold things down. My throat feels like, excuse me, feels like I have been either tearing up wool today, which I have not today anyway, or playing in the fuzz. I feel like I got fuzz in my throat. I don't know how well, on my computer, it's showing pretty close to color. This is showing a little more blue than it is, but when I take pictures of the haunted hollows, I just don't feel like it does it justice. It makes it look like it's purple and then blue, and it's not. It blends really nicely together. There's actually 4 different colors painted on there so that it gradually changes color. This is where I could have done the running stitch. It would have been a little bit faster. I forgot that was something I was talking about doing. I think we'll do it on the tombstone so that you can see it. And when we get here to the corner, to make corners stay down when you are appliquing, always take a stitch that goes straight out to the corner. It will help protect it there so that the corner doesn't end up getting, I don't know, crunkled or frayed, or so it's okay if it goes a little bit past where it's supposed to. It'll just add some support for that. Okay, couple more stitches and we're back to where we started, or one. Okay, there is the little ghosty. Appliqué in place. Now let's switch to a light gray. Let's see if this color will work. Yep, that color will work. Light gray to go around the tombstone. Okay. Okay, I'm going to do the running stitch along this edge right here, because I know that this slanted edge, from drawing it, I know that's the one that goes behind the cow, so it's not going to show, so I can just do a running stitch. A running stitch will be a little bit quicker to hold down that edge. And when we come out over here, now we can make the switch to the whip stitch. This part right here is probably also behind the cow. We can bring up our, yeah, that part. It's only that little part that sticks out. So we can also whip stitch this side. When I'm drawing those pieces that tuck behind, I try to stick with drawing straight lines as possible to keep it a reasonable amount under the layer that's in front of it. Generally, not as short as I can, but close to as short as I can, because you don't want those bulky layers to build up. And that's why, for example, you might be able to see it behind here. I don't know if you can see it. The inside of, like, this is the body piece right here. I know it's flipped sideways. Let's turn it around so that you can see it. There we go. Okay, so it's just barely under these pumpkin lobes and the hooves, and I went up here because that's where the stem will be. So it's not a long ways below or behind the rows that are above it, but it's enough to cover it. But that's how I try to make sure that we don't get too much bulk, because if it went like this pumpkin lobe will end up behind this pumpkin lobe, and if I went too far over, then we've got an extra layer there of thickness that we don't need. Sometimes, I mean, there are times, whoops, when we have to have 3 or 4 layers of thickness, but we shoot for only doing that if we have to. This needle is really sharp. I have hit my fingertip with it a few too many times already. Okay, that's far enough. Let's move that pin. That pattern is in the way. If you're like, why are you leaning over funny? Because I'm trying not to elbow and smash that pattern when it's in that spot. I could, again, just remove it and then put it back down in the right place. You can tell where the right place is from the pieces that you already have stitched down. But I thought it might save some time to leave it attached. Sometimes I tape them down. It's hard to say. Sometimes you can tape them down and then the tape doesn't stick, because I would only use painter's tape on it. I don't want something that's going to leave a residual on my wool. So generally I'm putting long pins in it. Short pins tend to bend your wool and your paper more. So yeah, short pins. Or long pins to hold the pattern in place. Okay, now we're coming up to do this corner right here. Let's move it over here. I cannot wait to get working on this guy. This one and the other ideas that I've had for these Haunted Hollow stitchscapes, I think it'd be perfect to do a haunted house. You could just do the black silhouette of a haunted house and give it yellow or orange windows, and then put fun things in the windows like black cats, or can put bats in the sky. You could put something together like that without too much trouble. These Stitchscapes come in fat eighths. This one is an extra large, so it's 15 by 15, or usually slightly bigger. About 15 by 15 is what I'm shooting for, but I never know for sure when I wash it how much it's going to shrink. So they're about 15 by 15 for the extra large, and then a fat eighth is approximately 12 by 15, 12 by 14, something like that. And so for that one, if you're going to do something that you're expecting to have 12 inches of wool, you might want something a little bit bigger. Not all of them end up being 12 inches after they're washed. It just depends. And then it also comes in fat 16ths, which is approximately 7.5 by 12. And then do I have the little ones of these? I think I do have the little ones. That's the next smaller size is about 6 by 7. The 6 by 7 size is perfect for if you're just going to do a little project that you want to use, like in the 4-inch Stitcher showcase, the little acrylic drawer that you can put it in, and then use the top of it like as just a little bowl or a little shelf. Then that size would be the perfect size. You could do a little 4-inch, so any Halloween icon that you can stitch up that's about 4 inches would go perfectly on that. I'll have some ideas in my shop for you. All right, I think we have the tombstone down. Maybe one more stitch. Well, let's tie that off. Yeah, I can't wait to work on this one. I mean, I have other things that I'm excited about that I'm working on, but I went, you know what, for Stitch with Me today, we are going to do this. It'll be fun. All right, so the next one we need is the body. Let's undo our top pin up here so that we can lay it down and get it to lay down flat, and make sure that where it's holding it is still where our ghost and our tombstone are, because these, yeah, they'll make the pinholes will mess with things. Let's peel off our freezer paper. I usually hang on to these in case I end up like recutting something. All right, it goes about like that. So let's see. That is way too high. Okay, this one needs to come down a little bit. This side needs to come down a lot bit. Okay, that is better. So if I get the tombstone right there, then this says this is still a smidgen too high. Okay, that's about where we want it. Now, I can't tell where it goes for sure on places like this where it doesn't match because it's inside. And I used to print these so that you could see all the marks inside and outside, but especially on ones like this, that is so complicated that you can't tell what's what. So, all right, this, let's try. Okay. Right here where it's an edge, those are the places that are going to be important for me to get in the right spot. That edge is not, it's a little bit too low. Okay, that's better. All right, you hold that out of the way up there while I put some pins in. I'm going to pin it and then see how much of it I stuck all the way through, because I don't want to move it till I get some of these spots in where they're supposed to be. Okay, when I pin this, I don't know if you saw that, when I pin it, this pin isn't very sharp, and so it's sliding it over. So I'm probably going to pin that one with the pin go in the opposite direction so that it gets it out where I want it to be. Sometimes after I've pinned it, I do put the placement guide, the vellum placement guide, back down again and make sure that it's where I want it. But the thing is, the pins shifted a little bit because even little applique pins kind of bend and twist things. And so it's hard to tell if it's in the right spot after you've pinned it down. So I don't always do that. Let's put one on that side. Whoop, that one goes all the way through. Is that the only one? Yep, that's the only one that goes all the way through, but that one does go all the way through. Let's get somebody up here and a couple more. I like to keep my applique pins in a pin cushion that I can pull them out of. That is not where they are right now. They are in a little tin with a magnet in it because I had been traveling with them, and that works okay with a pin cushion to travel with them if you put it in something so they can't get knocked out of your pin cushion while you travel. So yeah, on an airplane, a magnet is a great plan. So that's why. And I just haven't moved them back yet. I haven't done appliquing in a while. Little bits I've done, like my little sugar plum had a little bit of applique on it, but big applique like this where there's a lot of it, I haven't done this much applique in a while. I guess I did the sweaters. Okay, let's pick a brown that we are going to use to applique this down. I think this is my best brown, which brings up a little bit of I'm going to call it sad news because I think it's sad news. So I'm a little ornery about colors. I don't know if you've noticed that. I want things to match. I'm a little obsessive about making sure the colors match on things. So when I'm picking, it especially comes out when I'm picking threads to applique. Well, it probably comes out in everything, but in threads to applique, that's definitely an issue. And so I had all of the Wonderfill Alana collection. There were, I think there's about 40 colors. I can't remember for sure. Or there were at the time. They've added several since then. But and the wools that I had picked to embroider on when I first started were not those colors, not even close. And so my instructor had said it's okay to use one strand of embroidery floss if you don't have the wool in the same color. The advantage of the wool is that it blends in. Because it's wool, it kind of blends in with the rest of the wool and doesn't show up very well. So I took my husband with me. Well, probably we were on date night or something, and we were at the Hobby Lobby picking out floss that would match the wools that I was using. And just say he was not having the time of his life. He was getting frustrated because he'd pick up a blue and then he'd hold it next to it and it'd be like, whoa, that's not even close. So then he'd pick up another blue. We were actually looking at the time for aquas and pinks, fuchsias. I think they were light pink though. Anyway, we were having trouble finding the right ones. And I said to him, well, you know, there is a company that makes lots more colors than this. It's Aurifil, and they have like 240 or 30 or 70, I don't remember, lots of wool colors. There's also Genziana, and they have a bunch too, but they generally are more primitive colors. But Aurifil's colors span the spectrum. They were fabulous. And so for my birthday, he said I could order a set of the Aurifils. So when you see me take thread off of a spool that is red on the ends, that is an Aurifil. Aurifil calls theirs Lana, L-A-N-A. Wonderfill calls theirs Elana, E-L-A-N-A. I think that's how you spell it. Yeah, E-L-L-A-N-A. And then Genziana spells theirs Lana also. So I found out that means sheep, generally. And that's why wool has that name, sort of. So the reason this is a sad story is because I recently had some people in my home stitching with me, and they had picked out a few of the colors of the Aurifil Lana that they wanted, and they were like, can I buy this? And I was like, I don't know if it's a full spool, but if it is, you can buy it. If it isn't, you can buy it anyway. Because I had just recently got a contract to wholesale Aurifil. I was like, I'll just replace it. And so I hadn't had a chance to, I knew I'd got the response like that morning or something that said that my thing had gone through, or maybe it said it'll go through in the next day or two, but I knew that I was approved. So I was like, no problem, I'll just buy more. And so some people bought some of them, and then after they left, I went to go ahead and order the colors that are commonly used in one of my projects. And all I could see on the Aurifil website, the wholesale part of the website, I could only see like, I don't know, 40 colors. There were only 2 pages. There weren't very many at all. And I messaged my account rep and I said, I thought that there was a lot more Lana colors than that. That's what I was looking to order, and I'd put that on my application anyway. And she said, oh yeah, about a year ago, we discontinued our Lana colors, all but, I can't remember how many there are. And they had some variegated colors, and that's why the numbers are confusing to me, because I can't remember if 240 was including the variegated colors, or if 240 was without the variegated colors, and then there were 30 variegated colors. I'm not sure. And what they kept has a few variegated colors in it. But for example, for greens, I think that in the set that they kept, there are 5, I can't remember if it's 5 or 6 greens. So there's a medium green, and there's a slightly darker medium green. Then the other colors range, they're still greens, I guess you'd still call them greens, but they range from seafoam to chartreuse. There's an emerald, so a real bluey green, and a teal. And so they're in their green category, but I'm like, oh, we need a million greens. There's tons of green wools that need more than just the standard colors. Now, there are tips and tricks for how to use colors that are close but not as noticeable, but I was very sad that they had discontinued all their colors. Now, like I said, I was like, well, sad for everyone but me, because I have a whole set. And then I remembered that I accidentally sold some of my colors. So for the record, there is a seller, Aurifil dealer, on Etsy. Her name or her shop name on Etsy is Twisted Threads, I think. And she has backstock still of the colors that have been discontinued. And so if you had colors that you wanted, you should go to her. She had them on sale. I don't know how long they'll be on sale, but if you had colors that you wanted, like brown is another one that's really hard. The browns, the pinks, there's not, if you look at Alana's ones that they're keeping, so yeah, if there's colors that you want to get, you could grab them from Twisted Threads on Etsy. However, to deal with that problem long term, I mean, I don't have a permanent long-term plan to deal with it, but I know that sometimes when I'm dyeing, here's the issue. This isn't 100% wool, it's 50% wool. I thought it was 75-25, but somewhere I read that it's 50-50, but they're all the same. So because half of it, is not wool, I don't know if it will take dye the same as the wool. So I'm going to try, the next time I'm dyeing wools, I'm going to try throwing some of the wool threads in there. Not a ton of it. I don't need another product. I don't need another thread line to try and carry, because my colors would be unique to projects that I'm working on. But I am going to see how I've got that out there at the tip to protect that. Now, if they're really long, thin tips like this, the other thing I do, put it back where you can see it. Okay, pull it gently. I don't want to cover that. The other thing I'll do is just do a stitch across, because any stitch that I would do from the edge to the middle is too long. It's not wide enough to go the whole width of the stitch, so I just stitch across the top like this. So it's got like a little X holding the tip down, just like that. And that really only happens in Mini Moos because they have so many little branches on it, little fuzzies on them. So many little edges because of the fur. The actual embellishment stitches on a Mini Moo don't take very long. What takes a long time, well, they don't take as long. What takes a long time with the Mini Moos is actually the applique, because you've got all the little edges. Now we'll also stitch around all these little edges with a decorative stitch, but I find that these don't applique down as fast. Like you saw how fast I whipped around the ghost and the tombstone. These take a little bit longer. So I am going to throw some in. I'm going to throw in some of the, I got to figure out the best way to do that, because I don't want, the last thing I need is yards of wool thread knotted around my wool. But I'm going to see if it's possible for me to put some in so that I have a few bobbins of a wool thread that matches. Like I said, I'm worried that where I'm dyeing 100% wool, and I'm concerned that it won't take the color the same. In the end, I would have, a dark and a light, and they won't match, because you use different dyes for different fabric contents. And nylon or acrylics generally need different type of dye, and so I don't know if it'll work, but I'm going to try it, and then I'll keep you updated on that. Again, that it's not that I want another thread line to carry, it's that I'm going to want it to be the right color, and I don't want to go back to, I do now have a lot more floss as far as matching colors goes, but I don't want to go back to having to try and match my wools at Hobby Lobby. So I said that there were some tips for if they don't quite match. A couple of things. The tone, you know what, I don't know if I have the words right. It's more important that it is the same amount of dark and light than that it is the matching color. So if my choices on this were a medium gray that was the same dark or light as this background, or a lighter or darker brown, the choice would be to go with the one that matches the tone. People won't notice the color as well. Now, the first time that I hardly believed this, I was doing peach, and it was before you could get peach thread, and I used a tan. This is slightly peach too. I used a tan, and I thought that's going to show up around that Mini Moo's nose if I use tan for my applique thread, and it doesn't. The applique threads are thin enough, and it was wool, and it just blended right in. You couldn't tell that I had done it with tan instead of peach. So because it was the same amount of light and darkness, it will blend in better. So when you're choosing, it's more important to get the light to dark right than it is to get the shade right. If you get, well, maybe that means shade, than it is to get the right color. So when you looked at this one, I don't know if you noticed at the beginning that I did not have the little pumpkin except for the back of the pumpkin. There's a top of the pumpkin that's behind, or pumpkin back, and then there's the little stem, and then here's my pattern, and then there's the 5 pumpkin lobes that are in front. So this is the pumpkin back one back here behind the stem. These were not cut out because I am hoping to use some of the wool. I want some personality in those. I'd say some texture, but usually by texture I mean that I want velvet, or I want and that's not what I want. So but I want them to match. When I went through my wool stash, I was like, oh, I have a bunch of different oranges, but they don't even close to go together. So I'm going to custom dye some to do, well, I custom dye everything, I guess, but I'm going to dye some specifically for this project, and hope that that works. And they don't need to go on until much later. They're almost the front thing, so they can wait a day or two till my next dye day. But that is not today. I wish it was. I have a granddaughter who is potty training. I might have mentioned that. She's been potty training for a while. I might have mentioned that in a different video. I don't know. But her little brother, I think he's 5 months today, or so I'd have to count again. April, May, June, July, August. 4. He's not quite 4 months old. Okay. Is pretty impatient with the fact that his mom keeps putting him down to go take sister to the potty, or to sit with sister at the potty, because he personally likes to be held nonstop. So I've spent some time in the last week or more just holding him. It's not a bad job. I'm just cuddling with a 4-month-old, and he is a friendly little cuddly guy. He loves to just melt into you. He's mature enough that he'll lift his head and look around when he feels like it, but he really likes to snuggle. So he'll look around and see what's going on, but more than anything, he'll just tuck his head right into my neck and cuddle. He doesn't always sleep, although I generally can get him to sleep at least once in the 5 hours that I'm there. But yeah, he does not want, I'm not allowed to put him down or anything. He has the same reaction when I put him down as he does when his mom puts him down. It's kind of funny because he loves his siblings as long as they keep their distance. You can tell that he's a little afraid of them. They're a little uneasy. It's like, oh, somebody who is a little older should hold me for a while because I'm a little bit afraid. His siblings are 5 and 7 and 3. Okay, is this the one I used? That looks more red. Oh, I think I put it down. Hey, Brown, where are you? Seriously, where did I put it? There it is. This one looks like I stepped on it. I think this one is Genziana. I think they're Genziana when they're on the little spool like this. There was an Etsy seller who took the Genziana and put them on in little, she was like purple butterfly or something, I can't remember. She just would make little boxes with 25 colors on it. And when I was first getting started, $11 for a spool for the Genziana spools was a lot of money. So I went with, so that I had more colors, I got all of those. So ultimately, I think I have purchased at least once all of the colors of wool applique thread that have been made. But that doesn't mean I can find them or that I haven't used them up. When I was doing something, I can't remember what it was, I went through a lot of the gray and the white, and so I messaged her and asked her if she could make me more grays and whites. But that meant her numbers were uneven, so she wasn't super excited about it. And had I understood at the time, because I was brand new at the time, that I could just buy a spool of Genziana and accomplish the same thing, that would have been a better way to go. But live and learn. Okay, so we are almost finished with this piece. And now usually when I'm putting these together, I try to pin down all of the pieces that can be pinned down, and which means that I could have put but I think it'll work on the next one. I could have also done the horns. The horns are one of the first things that you can do on these little guys because they are almost behind everything. They stick out, but they start out behind everything. I think I'll still be able to get them. I don't think the head, I know that sounds a little, hey, you are not allowed to bite my thread. I know it sounds a little crazy that the horns would not interfere with the head, but on this one, again, with me trying to keep the layers to a minimum, the head layer doesn't go that high because there's bangs on top of it. So I think it ends before the horns. And we can't put the head on, so we could still do we need to do the arms first before we can put the head on. So the arms would be next, because they go under the chin. How do I know that order? I know it from drawing it. I know it because this is my 13th moo. I guess those are the answers right there. Oh. See, these are tiny, and it was aimed out that way till I made the stitch. So let's do another cross one on this one to hold it in that spot. Same thing for this guy. You'll notice that I don't usually go from the middle out. I will on this one just to show you what I mean. But I don't usually go from here out to the tip. I usually start at the tip and go in, because sometimes coming up through the wool there on the tip distorts it. It can pull it funny, but going down doesn't seem to bother it as much because it has the support of the background. That one, side to side piece, needs to be pulled a little tighter because it made it fat, like it's not even a little fur there. Okay. A little bit ago, my son stuck his head in and said, "Hey, can we go get dinner?" He's home from football practice and ready to go out to dinner. And so it looks like I will just be able to get this piece on in this video. Okay, what needs to go under the arms? Oh, maybe I'm going to need those pumpkin lobes. The arm has to go over the hoof, which has to go over the pumpkin lobe, so I might need those pumpkin lobes. I think what I'll do is just sew the arms down to about right here so that I can keep going, and because then I'll be able to put the head on top of that. But that is an interesting thing. Maybe I will get to my dyeing quicker than I thought. It was supposed to be on the schedule for tomorrow, so we'll see if that's what happens. I'm a little bit torn. I kind of want to work on my woodworking machine tomorrow, and I want to dye tomorrow. Those are the two options. I wish I thought I could work on my woodworking machine for half the day and get it to the point where it works, and then I could dye for the other half of the day. That would be perfect. My husband has put my machine together, but they said it makes a lot of dust, and so I'm supposed to make an enclosure to go around it. So I have PVC pipe and marine vinyl, just clear vinyl but pretty thick stuff, that I am taping to the PVC pipe to make the enclosure for it, so that we don't get dust, so we don't have an inch thick layer of dust on everything. Hoping that works. So that's my first step. Oh, look, we've come unpinned. That's okay. We have enough stuff that we don't have to worry about that. We've got enough landmarks to line it up on that we won't have to worry about that. I think I could put that together in an hour though. And then I don't know, I mean, he put the machine together and I know the blades are not connected, and so, or the bits haven't been put in. I don't know what else it needs besides that to get it running. But I think that'll be my first thing tomorrow morning, is to get that part made and see if we can get that running, because we need it going for our stitch windows. If you've been watching more of these videos, you know the fall stitch windows and the Halloween stitch windows. I have my prototypes made for them. Prototypes is just my first example to make sure that the patterns work, that the right size, prototypes, to make sure that everything's going to work well for them. So I have those done. So I know that it's going to turn out to be the right shape, and that my drawings are working for those, but I don't have I want to cut them on the woodworking machine, not on the laser. It'll improve the quality of them just a little bit. Laser cut's super accurate, but the level of a laser I have, it doesn't cut very thick. Or it takes a long time to cut through thicker things. I suppose there are lasers that cut through 3/4 inch. Okay, since he's not knocking down my door, I only have about 8 more stitches. I'm going to go ahead and give you a sneak peek of those prototypes. We are close, and we're close on the amount of thread we have. Send that to the back. We're going to go ahead and take that out since the other side is off. Let's tie our knot back here. There's our super unexcited. That kind of looks like a bow-legged cowboy there. There we go. There is the beginnings of Bramble appliqued in place. Thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, I promised you I'd show. Okay, I'll show them to you in a minute. And then I'll flip it around where I put it. Okay, so there's Bramble. Let me show you those prototypes. I'm laying right here. This is one of the fall ones. It's not done completely. I want to put my stitching in the actual one. But see how on the pumpkins, the frame part, that's this part. So it has a divot in it so that you can put it over top of your wool and then it'll hold it down, and then you just glue that down. But I wanted to stain. Let's go up a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. I want to stain or to paint brown up here, and I don't love the brown. Honestly, I didn't love this green either. I would like it to be a little bit darker green. So I'm headed back to look for more paints. I probably should take them with me tonight. Maybe I'd get a chance after dinner. And then this is one of the Halloween ones. Okay. Again, I don't want to glue my my stitching down because this is not my finished product, but this is one of the Halloween ones. It's a mason jar, and actually these are just the beginning in a whole series of these. I have them for all of the holidays. They're sketched, so I know what I'm doing, but I haven't got them drawn up yet. But there is a mason jar in a lot of them. There's not a mason jar in the fall one, it's just pumpkins. And then this one I haven't cut yet, but you can still get the right idea on this one. It will look like this. And again, there will be, I'm going to do these brown, and then I'm hoping to have some rusty wire that you wrap around it and do little twiggy twirlies and attach a little leather leaf to them. So yeah, those are my prototypes that are finished. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.